So, this will be the report for the team that I used to win the Malmo Regional Championship and take my third regional title, which feels amazing. There's only been one other three-time regional champion in Europe, and I finally matched him. And I've also got a couple of seconds, a couple of thirds as well. So, with that win, I am now the most successful European regional player ever, which is quite the accolade. And I'm over the moon to have got it. So for this video, I'm going to be going through the team building process that I used to build the team. I'll be going through the Pokemon spreads, which is obviously the bit you want to see. And if you only want to see the Pokemon spreads, then there'll be timestamps in the description, so you can just skip ahead to them. But I will be going through a little bit about my Sydney run, because I did take exactly the same team to the Oceania International Championship, and then I will go through my Malmo run. So the place to start off with when you're team building is obviously the call. Like, you've always got to try and bring the call to the tournament, and I had two calls for Sydney, because this team building was mainly for Sydney. I didn't know if I was going to be taking this team to Malmo as well, so I am actually team building for Sydney here, but I had two calls. One, I had no time to build, because I did have my exams through all of January. I had about a week to build a team and decide what I wanted. So I decided to put one of the calls to the side and focus on the other one, which was Serperior. So Serperior, I think, is a fantastic Pokemon. For me, personally, I like my supports to still be able to do damage, and I also very much like setup Pokemon. So Serperior is actually both of them. It can set up with its Leaf Storm, and it has a lot of support roles that it can take as well. So Serperior fits me perfectly, and I've been playing around with Serperior for pretty much the entirety of VGT 18, put it on to almost every team that I build, because I did think it would be a very good call for Sydney. And the main item I'd been playing around with was Assault Vest, because I did think that the bulk that the Assault Vest added to it was really, really good, and it got a load of attacking moves that it really appreciated. Like, you're always going to have Leaf Storm on Serperior. On the Assault Vest one, I had a Giga Drain. You had Dragon Tail for stopping Trick Rooms and setups, like Komo as well. There was all the hidden powers that you could choose, but you always chose the wrong hidden power, because if you have hidden power Rock, you don't have hidden power Ground for Heatran. But there was a load of things that the Assault Vest could do. There's a couple of things that I'm going to keep secret as well, because there's a couple of really cool things that I'm planning to do with Serperior, maybe in the future. Another thing, just to mention with the Assault Vest, is the Grass Pledge as well, because I did try out a triple pledge team with a Scarf Greninja and a Charizard Y as well, and that was pretty decent, but not good enough for Sydney. But at one point, when we were when my team in the MPA, the Monarchs, were team building, we came across a very nice Pokemon that we thought would also be really good, and I ended up working out that it was actually a really good combination with the Serperior. So that Pokemon was Persian. So the main reason that we were focusing on Persian was because of this calc. So with Black Glass's Foul Play, you can OHKO a lot of Mega Metagrosses a lot of the time. And this is right at the beginning of the season, so this might become a little bit more irrelevant as people start doing good spreads on Mega Metagross, but at the beginning of the season, people are lazy and they just go 252, 252. And if they do that, then you've got an 87% chance of OHKOing them with your Foul Play. And Persian outspeeding Metagross is just lovely. So on the ladder, there was so many times that people would just lead Metagross and let me get a turn 1 KO on it, and it was brilliant. So another thing to mention for this combination was that you could go for self-parting shot into your own Serperior. You could go for fake outs and Leaf Storm, so you could get set up. So I thought this was actually a very strongly combination. And then just one day, because we were testing Serperior as well in my MPA team, and just as a joke one day, I thought it would be funny to put Swagger onto my Serperior and have my Persian underspeed it. And Swagger's accuracy has been reduced. It's down to 85%. It's only a 5% drop, but that drop is significant. Like, people who run Will-O-Wisp know how much you miss Will-O-Wisps, so I wasn't happy with that. So just as a joke, I put on the wide lens just to make the Swaggers a bit more accurate. It complemented the Leaf Storms as well, so it made it 99% accurate, but it ended up being the absolute perfect item for Serperior, and I don't think I could use another one now, even though, like, the Assault Vest was absolutely fantastic. Obviously, you can't have Swagger on the Assault Vest, but things like a Super Berry, even just a Citrus Berry, I guess, having a Meadow Plate to boost your Leaf Storms, no, I couldn't do that anymore. The Wide Lens was absolutely fantastic, and it let me do the Swagger Foul Play combinations very nicely. I don't think I've missed a Swagger yet with my Serperior. Even though it's 93% accurate, I don't think I missed one yet, so that's quite impressive. But this was actually a very, very good combination, and I was actually pretty happy with the Swagger, how it worked out. Getting +2 Black Glasses Foul Plays onto Pokemon. A bit reminiscent of Barry Anderson's Liepardon's Thundurus combination, where you could go for Swagger with Thundurus and then Foul Play, and he had the Black Glasses on his Liepard as well, so it was a bit reminiscent of that, and I did really enjoy it, so I did try and build a team around it, and I ended up with these 6 as the most successful version with the Serperior and the Persian. I did climb into, I think it was the mid-1700s on Showdown with this team, because with the Tapu Fini, you could also go for Cell Swagger stuff as well, and Serperior outspeeding Metagross, and being in the Misty Terrain, swaggering your Metagross to +2 was very nice, and I did pull that off a couple of times while climbing on the ladder. And it was quite fun. The Thundurus and Volcarona didn't really perform that well. Like, Volcarona was alright, Thundurus was alright, but the team in general was okay, and I didn't think it was good enough for Sydney. But because of my exams, I didn't have time to really build much else. So I was planning to build around this team, or just keep it as this for Sydney, but I still wasn't confident enough with it. And if there was another option that I could build around in the time, then I was going to take that. And it turns out that I did have a saviour, and that saviour was Ben Kiriakou. Now, he managed to top cut the Leipzig Regional with this team, with the Florges, which was really, really cool. I do think that Florges is actually a really strong partner for Kartana now that I've tested it. But the thing I liked about it was that it was really reminiscent of my VGC 15 team, which was this. And VGC 15 is the closest format there is to VGC 18, so I wanted to make a team that was similar to my VGC 15 team for a while, and this was the closest attempt that anyone had made. Like, I hadn't made it myself, someone else ended up doing it for me, but there we go. And I was pretty happy with it. Like, I did take it to the first mid-season showdown in London, because I did have the grand tour of 2 MSSs over the weekend in London, then flying straight to Sydney, and then flying straight to Malmo. So in the very first mid-season showdown, I did end up using Ben Kiriakou's version of this team. And I did come second, which was pretty good. I did lose to Jonathan Evans in the final, and he had the Seijun Sand team, which was pretty much a hard counter to this. And I managed to take a game with a double protect, but there we go. I was quite happy with that. And then I did theorize a change that I could make, because I did want to take Serperior to Sydney. I was quite sure of that. And I did theorize a way that I could put Serperior onto this team. So for the second mid-season showdown, I did end up changing Florges and Kartana, even though Ben would be very sad that I changed the Florges. Did change it to Celesteela and Serperior, so I got to keep the grass and steel types. And Celesteela was really good against stuff like Metagross and Tapu Lele, so I thought that would be a good addition to the team. I did manage to slot my Serperior onto the team. On this version, I did have Light Screen and Reflect, because the Florges did have Light Screen, and I wanted to try and keep the screens with my Serperior here. And I know objectively I should have had the Light Clay on that Serperior, but I can't change from Wide Lens now, even though I didn't have Swagger on this Serperior. I just had Leaf Storm, so it was Leaf Storm, Screens, and Protect, but I couldn't change to Light Clay. Wide Lens was just too good. But yeah, I managed to win the mid-season showdown, so I won. I came second and first in the 2 mid-season showdowns, and I thought that this was probably better than the best attempt with the Persian Serperior that I made before to take to Sydney, because I'd done pretty well in the 2 tournaments, but I did still have Persian Serperior in my mind, and I did want to take that to Sydney somehow. But again, with the second edit that I made to this team, I did find a way to slot Persian onto this team, and that was to change the Incineroar to Persian and move the Fire type onto Salamence, so that I got the Dragon, Fire, and Flying in CharizardX. So I did get to keep the Mega, I got to keep the Dragon Dance Mega, and I got to put Persian onto the team and have the combination with the Serperior. So I was pretty pleased with this. I didn't get to practice at all with it, like not even on Showdown, because I was flying for 24, I think it was 22 hours out there. So I had no time to practice. I just went in with the theory and decided that I would go with my Persian Serperior because I did really want to take that to Sydney. So now that I had found another team that seemed to be working, even though it was like it looks completely different to what the original version was, it played pretty much the same. So I was happy to take it to Sydney, and I didn't do so well there. I ended up going 5-3, which wasn't too good. So maybe the team wasn't that good a choice, and maybe I should change the team for Malmo. And no, the team was absolutely identical to the one I brought to Sydney because I had no time to build anything else. Because then I had a 27-hour flight back from Sydney to London, and then flew immediately out to Copenhagen to go to Malmo. So this 6 is what I ended up with for Sydney and for Malmo as well. So that's how I came up with this team. And now we'll move on to the spreads of the Pokemon. Starting with the CharizardX. So I'm just going to say it straight away, don't use this EV spread, there will be another one. This EV spread is not a very good one, because I didn't have too much time to build one. And I ended up liking the bulk, but not liking the speed. So the speed actually ends up outspeeding max speed Tapu Bulu and Smeargle, so that after Dragon Dance, I would outspeed the Scarf Bulus and Scarf Smeargles. Now that obviously does underspeed Scarf Landorus and Scarf Tapu Lele, and also Gyarados as well, which was something that came into play in one of my matches. So I wasn't too happy with this spreads in playing it. Like, I did survive a lot of things in single digits, so the bulk was very nice. I don't think I would change the attack investment on this Charizard though, because with the Adamant 76, the Flare Blitz does OHKO a Tapu Koko at neutral, so even if you get intimidated after you Dragon Danced, you can still one-shot a Tapu Koko and outspeed it as well. So don't think I would change this attack investment. If you wanted to go jolly with your Charizard, I would still hit the same benchmark with the attack, and that's like closing in on like 204, give or take. It would like just hit the same number that 76 Adamant does, because I don't think you should go any lower with that with your Charizard. Feel free to go higher if you want to do any more damage, but I was definitely comfortable with the attack investment. That was the only thing I was happy with. So like with the Thunder Punch as well, that is the coverage move. Because obviously I do like Dragon Dance on the CharizardX. Like you got some like alternatives with bulky Will-O-Wisp. But I did like Dragon Dance, and Thunder Punch was definitely, in my opinion, the best coverage move, because you should always have Flare Blitz. So some people have said you may want to try Fire Punch instead of Flare Blitz on Charizard X, but the drop in power from Fire Punch is highly significant, and like you can get away with running Return over Double Edge on Salamence, but that's a drop in power of 18, and you've got a drop in power of 45 from Flare Blitz to Fire Punch, so that is a huge drop, and you don't get the KOs like the Flare Blitz KO and the Koko, and I think that is highly important and worth the recoil, unfortunately. But Thunder Punch lets you have a neutral coverage move that doesn't do any damage to you. The alternative is really Dragon Claw, but Flare Blitz and Dragon Claw as coverage themselves aren't too great. Like, you want to have Dragon Claw if you're really weak to Komo-O, but outside of that, I think Thunder Punch was definitely the correct one, especially if you have a Tapu Koko on your team, because then you get electric terrain boosted Thunder Punches, because when you Mega Evolve, you do get grounded, so you do get the terrain boosts with the Thunder Punch. And unless you hit Tapu Finis and waters, like any waters, Tapu Fini is a water. But so yeah, like I don't think I would choose anything other than Thunder Punch after testing it. It was definitely the correct coverage move. And you can KO like pretty much all the Tapu Finis. Like that's against the calc that's there is against the 252 HP and 252 defense. So not bold, but in electric terrain at +1, you should expect to KO any Tapu Finis, which is really nice. And I did pretty much just dump the HP. There wasn't a specific calc that the HP hit. Like you can see that you easily survive an Earthquake. You can get KO'd from a Life Orb, Psychic from a Tapu Lele, 43% of the time, which is okay. You could take out some HP and put it into Special Defense to make that live. You can do that with the EVs left over with the speed and attack, but I think because of the Flare Blitz recoil, having as much HP as possible is much better. And that is the reason why this spread isn't so good. Like, I hit a speed that I wanted, which I think should be faster. I hit the attack that I wanted, which I'm definitely comfortable with, and then pretty much dumped in HP for Flare Blitz recoil. But I do think that there is a slightly better spread, and it is this. Like don't go with the first one. If you're going to use this team, use this one. Because I am going to have pastes and QRs, well, only one QR, but I'll have pastes of the original version in the description and the updated version in the description. And the QR version that's in the description, if you want to try that out, will be the updated spread. So it will be using this Charizard. Now this Charizard hits 148 speed, so it does outspeed Modest Tapu Lele, and it outspeeds Adamant Scarf Landorus, you need +1 for that, but it outspeeds Adamant Landorus, and also Gyarados as well. Like, those were the 3 that I mentioned that you do want to outspeed, that I couldn't before, so I think that is much better. You only lose a slight bit of bulk with the Charizards, but keeping all the investment in HP I think is much better because of the Flare Blitz recoil. So, moving on to the next Pokemon, Celesteela. Now, quite amusingly, I brought Acrobatic Celesteela to both the 2017 Malmo Regional and the 2018 Malmo Regional. I don't think there was pretty much anyone that used Acrobatic Celesteela in 2017, so it's quite amusing that I ended up using the Celesteela in both tournaments. But I think Acrobatics is a lot better in 2018. Like, it hits stuff like Volcarona, even though you're weak to Volcarona, but you can live it, unless there's Z-move. So you can KO on the setup. You hit Como pretty well as well, which is really nice, because that is quite a threat now, and the attack investment let me KO Volcaronas with Acrobatics. You probably won't see, apart from supportive Volcaronas, if they're Quiver Dance Volcaronas, you won't see bulkier than that. So you can just straight up OHKO a Volcarona with the Acrobatics, and so you obviously still KO like a lot of Tapu Leles. If they've got significant defensive bulk, then they'll live, but you can two shots Tyranitar as well. But something to note is that the Heavy Slam becomes 80 power against Mega Tyranitar, so you do 3-shot those. So that's a bit unfortunate, but the special defense investment, I could put a lot into the special bulk. Because of the Electric Seed boosting the defense, you don't need any defense investments, so pretty much just dump the rest into special defense. I do outspeed base 100s in Tailwind, and then all into special bulk, and that lets me live a Life Orb, Thundurus, Therian, Thunderbolt, and I didn't actually calc for that. Like, I did dump the rest into special defense, so I had max HP after hitting the speed and attack and dumped into special defense. It ended up hitting the bump in the EVs, which is really nice, and it got the Thundurus survival, which was quite amusing because that came into play in the second mid-season when the Thundurus went for a Thunderbolt into my Celesteela and I lived, and I didn't expect to, but I shouldn't underestimate the specially bulky Celesteela. You can also live a Charizard Wise Heat Wave, which is quite impressive as well. Like, I was quite impressed with that, and that is in the sun also, so Celesteela is very, very bulky. It even has the chance to live the Life Orb Thunderbolt from Koko. Like, you shouldn't expect to, but if you have to in an emergency, you can. Most are at Z-move anyway, so you're just probably going to get KO'd to Z-move, but there we go. Like, I was pretty happy with the Celesteela. I wouldn't change the spread on the Celesteela, unless you want to go for a bit more creep, but I don't think Substitute is that great in 2018, although I haven't tested it with Celesteela, but I don't think you'll be seeing many Substitute Celesteelas, so the speed creep won't be that important. I was fine with just outspeeding the base 100s in Tailwinds. You could go for outspeeding Metagross in Tailwinds, but you're not really hitting it very hard with Heavy Slam and Acrobatics, so there's no real need to outspeed them. And if you're going any faster, then you're losing a lot of special box, so I don't think it's worth it. And I'm pretty happy with this spread. So moving on to the Persian. So with the black glasses, I've already said about the foul play calc onto the Mega Metagross. That is the main reason that I put the black glasses on. Also with the Swagger foul play, that does KO a lot of things at +2 with the black glasses. That's just normal, maybe Berry Persian wouldn't KO otherwise. But I saw that Persian got Icy Wind right at the beginning of the format, and then these 4 moves, Foul Play, Icy Wind, Fake Out, and Passing Shot, I theorize would be absolutely amazing. Like, the support that this Persian can give while still giving out significant offense. Like I said at the beginning, I like my supports to be able to do damage, and Foul Play with Black Glasses does let Persian do that, but the support in Icy Wind for speed control, Fake Out to stop Pokemon moving, and Parting Shot to make your Pokemon even, well, it doesn't make your Pokemon more bulky, it makes them weaker, so you take less damage. Like, that is absolutely fantastic support. I'm quite surprised that not many people have started using Icy Wind Persian. Maybe they haven't seen that Persian got Icy Wind until I've started using it now, but like, that moveset just is absolutely fantastic support. So I don't have max speed in this Persian because I do want to underspeed my Serperior. Now, if I underspeed my Serperior, that means that I can't Parting Shot and Leaf Storm on the same turn. So that was something I had to sacrifice, because I had to either choose Self-Parting Shot and Leaf Storm or Swagger and Foul Play. And I'm pretty sure that Swagger Foul Play is the much, much stronger option there. So I ended up going with the Persian that undersped my Persian, so I was fine with that. I swaggered way more than I parting shotted, so I was content with the decision. And there's almost nothing that I would need to outspeed with the Persian, with the speed investment. Maybe I need to outspeed Serperiors now that it might become a thing because I won with it, but there we go. I never missed the tiny bit speed drop. And I also put a lot of investment into HP instead of special defense, because the special defense, I think it was, what, 100 and 156 special defense was the main Persian spread that was used in 2017, and that let it live a modest Life Orb Dazzling Gleam from Tapu Koko. And I don't think there should be any modest Tapu Kokos in 2018. All of them should be timid so that you can outspeed Mega Salamence. I think that is very important. So if they're Life Orb Tapu Koko, then they should be timid, and I was comfortable just living timid Life Orb, the Dazzling Gleams from the Tapu Kokos. So that afforded me to put a lot more investment into HP, because I only needed the 44 special defense with the rest in HP to survive the Dazzling Gleam. It let me have a lot more HP, and that was pretty much dumped as well, because I wanted to have as much HP as possible. And that let me live stuff like Landorus's Tech Rage. So if you just go with the full special Persian, then you will get, well, you have a good chance to be KO'd to a Tectonic Rage from Landorus, but being able to guarantee to live that like comfortably as well, not even close, with the HP investment was really nice. And you do still take things like a Charizard Heat Wave in the sun, which is really nice. And I didn't really miss the Super Berry on Persian. I went down into Super Berry range a lot with the Persian, but the Black Glasses, the damage output that the Black Glasses gave me, I don't think I could change to Super Berry, especially with the Swagger stuff as well. Maybe if I didn't have Swagger, or if this Persian was just put onto just another random team without Swagger, then maybe you should change to Super Berry. But the Black Glasses damage increase was very, very significant, and I think I would stick to Black Glasses if I was still using the Persian. So moving on to Persian's favourite partner, Serperior. And I do mean that. I do mean that Serperior is one of Persian's favourite partners. The combination of Persian and Serperior was actually really, really good in testing, and it was a really good lead. And that was because of the Swagger on the Serperior. So the Swagger combination with Persian was really, really strong. And I don't have Tapu Fini on my team anymore, so self-swaggers are dangerous, but possible. Like, I can self-swagger my Charizard in an emergency, and my game plan against Chansey was actually to self-swagger my Celesteela up to +6 and then Heavy Slam, because Heavy Slam doubles in power. Was it doubles in power? It definitely hit through Minimize. I can't remember if it doubles in power as well, but that was my plan going in against Chansey, to swagger my Celesteela up to +6. But yeah, like, I can also swagger some other Pokemon on my team, but we'll get to that. And yeah, it was actually really nice. The support options that Serperior had was so vast. Like, narrowing down what I wanted on the Serperior was really, really hard. Like, obviously you've got to have Leaf Storm, and with the Swagger as well, with the Persian, that's made sense there. But there were so many other options. Like, I had the screens on my Serperior in the mid-season showdown. You got Glare, which can paralyze a Landorus, and that's really, really good. Glare is a really good move, and I had it on my 2015 Serperior. I had Worry Seed on that Serperior as well, to get rid of like Aerialate moves, and to self-Worry Seed myself to stop Spores from Amoonguss. But that's not so necessary anymore with Tapu Koko on the team, so I didn't really need the Worry Seed. And the Glare, I didn't think I needed it too much. I had Tailwind and I had Icy Wind on my Persian, so I thought the Taunt was the correct filler move for Serperior. Well, not filler move. It's not a filler move. It's definitely useful, because it is my only true way of stopping Trick Room. I could have had Dragon Tail, I guess, and with the wide lens, like 99% accurate Dragon Tails as well, so don't really have to worry about missing that. But there were things like Mimikyu as a Trick Room setter, which isn't as common as I thought it would be with the Let's Snuggle Forever, but like that is definitely something that would be very detrimental, because if I faced a Mimikyu with this team and only had Dragon Tail as my way of stopping it, especially because I couldn't fake it out with the Persian so that I could set up and then KO the Trick Room setter that way. But yeah, I think the Taunt was better, and because Mental Herb has completely disappeared because Super Berry is so good now, I thought the Taunt was definitely correct. There were a couple of times where I couldn't bring Serperior, like my stream game in Sydney. I I did end up taunting the Celesteela, but that wasn't enough to beat the Trick Room. In Malmo, I faced a team that I couldn't really bring Serperior to, so they could get Trick Room up. I could have brought Serperior, but it wasn't so good. But having it as my only true way of stopping Trick Room was not the best. But I was bringing Serperior to a reasonable amount of matches, so I was fine with it. And so obviously you should have Protect on a non-Assault Vest Serperior. Going back to my very first VGC 15 regional where only my Serperior had Protect, but yeah, like I was content with this moveset. There's even more options that Serperior has. Like I'm definitely not just leaving it here with Serperior. Serperior is going to be a fantastic mon all through 2018, and I'm sure it'll appear on another one of my teams. But for now, we'll just focus on this set with the wide lens, and like I said before, I can't change to another item now. I think I will always use a wide lens Serperior. Mainly because of the Leaf Storm. Like, forget the Swagger, because not every team is going to have Persian and Serperior on it. So, the Leaf Storm is 90% accurate, and that is your setup move. Like, imagine if you missed Nasty Plot. Like, that is the equivalent. If you miss your Leaf Storm, you miss Nasty Plot. And that's horrible. So, I don't think you could do that. Like, if you played Komo-O as well, like, everyone who's played Komo-O has whiffed a Clangor Soul Blaze into Double Fairy and just lost their boost entirely. It's kind of the same thing with Serperior if you miss your Leaf Storm. You can't afford to miss your Leaf Storm. You don't want to miss your setup, because Serperior needs a boost on turn 1. Or at least it needs a boost to be able to do damage. When it's unboosted, its damage output is really, really pathetic. But as soon as it gets one boost, even just one boost, it is a huge threat, and it needs that boost. So Wide Lens let you click Leaf Storm without any fear of missing your setup. And like going through all of 2017, using High Jump Kick Pheromosa, I think I've been traumatized enough by that Wide Lens was definitely justifiable. So also shout outs to the Sax Lad. I did scoff at your Wide Lens Metagross when you won the Liverpool Regional, but yeah, I can't have a go at you anymore. Wide Lens was absolutely legit on this Serperior, and I don't think I could change to it. It was just put on as a joke with the Swagger, with the Foul Play. Like, the Swagger just at first was the joke with the Persian, and then Wide Lens was a joke with the Swagger, but then that joke ended up being amazing. Like, there's been a couple of times where I've just put things on as a joke on my Pokemon. Like my Skill Swap Tapu Lele in 2017, that was initially a joke, and then that was the best Tapu Lele in 2017, although no one believed me, but it was definitely the best. And like, it is funny when jokes that you put onto teams actually end up working out amazingly. So I was very happy with this Serperior. Now, I do have max speed because I do want to outspeed my Persian and keep my Persian as fast as possible. I could have maybe gone down 1 speed so that the Persian would, because Persian could afford to be 1 speed slower and still outspeed Mega Metagross because it was actually 2 points faster, but there was no real point. Like, Thunderous Therian isn't really a thing, but you might as well outspeed it. I was comfortable with my Persian speed tying with Mega Lucario and Perugly, but you don't really see them. Although, amusingly, there was actually a Perugly at one of the mid-season showdowns I went to, so I could have speed tied with that Perugly. With the Fake Out Wars, that would have been amusing, but yeah, like, I did need the max speed to keep Persian as fast as possible, and the HP investment was so that it could live a Hyper Voice from Salamence. It also lets it live a Heat Wave from Heatran, so I was comfortable with this HP investment, but something I did miss when I was making the spread was that the Kangaskhan Double Edge does have a reasonable chance to KO you. I think it was something like 25%, give or take, so I've come up with just a slightly adjusted EV spread, taking 16 out of the special attack and putting it into the defense. And that does mean that you survive the Kangaskhan Double Edge. I think it goes to like 95% of the time now. So that is a significant enough increase to justify the slight shift into defense. And as you can see, if you're at +2, then you can still OHKO the no bulk Landorus's. So it won't affect too many offensive calcs, and the defense should help out. So yeah, Wide Lens Serperior is definitely the play. Feel free to change the Wide Lens to something else. Like, it should objectively be like a Meadow Plate or a Super Berry or something like that. But in my opinion, you can't afford not to have the Wide Lens. You can't afford to not hit your Leaf Storm. So, moving on to one of my favourite Pokemon, the Suicune. Now, you might be surprised that this Suicune doesn't have Raw, because I was running Raw Suicune all through 2015, but this did initially evolve from Ben Kiriaku's team, and he had Snarl overall, so I started off with that, and then when I was playing with it in the mid-season showdowns, I actually really like the Snarl on the Suicune, so I did sacrifice potentially having Roar in it, but Snarl was really nice in practice. So you see the EV spreads lets me survive a Thunderbolt from Thunderous Therian, because that was an adaptation that was made to the EV spread. I initially had a Modest one because I had Modest on my 15-1, so I started there. But then against Asian Sand team, I think it was necessary to be able to live that Thunderbolt from Thunderous to give you a bit better of a chance with the Suicune. So I was fine going with the Calm. Didn't lose too much special attack from the Modest one, so I was happy with it. It outspeeds, it significantly outspeeds the Scarf Landorus in Tail, and I think this one hits, what was it, 114? That should outspeed Scarf Lele in Tailwind, because that's more of a thing now, because I had slightly less speed on my 15-1, but because of Scarf Lele, it's got a little bit more now, and I think it's got 1 point of creep as well. So feel free to try and creep other Suicunes if you're going to borrow this one. But the defense investment lets it live a Wood Hammer, a -1 Wood Hammer from Scarf Tapu Bulu, because the Adamant Tapu Bulus won't go too high with their attack investment. The highest you should see is the Jolly Max. No one should ever be Adamant Max. I guess the hard Trick Room teams would be Adamant Max, but then they're probably going to be something like Life Orb, and you're definitely not living that. So, but that was when I had Intimidate on the team. I guess I still have Parting Shot on the team, so I can put things to -1, but now that the Salamence is gone and there's no Intimidate, I think that this defensive investment is a bit irrelevant now. And if you can see the offensive calcs, like, you don't always KO a Salamence with an Ice Beam, although there are a lot of Salamences that are having like a lot of bulk, so you won't KO them anyway. But if they're like just the Sand Salamence, then they have no bulk, so you don't always KO them. I think it's a 68% chance with that investment, and like on a 252 HP Heatran, you don't always two-shot it. So I think that shifting the defensive bulk that let you survive the Wood Hammer into special attack is a good idea for this team specifically. Like the first spread, I think, might be slightly better in general, but I think for this team specifically, this spread would be slightly better. So use this one if you're going to use this team, because you now pretty much always KO no bulk Salamence, and you do pretty much always two-shot a 252 HP Heatran. You shouldn't expect to see much bulkier Heatrans than them. And as you can see, you definitely KO Landoruses that aren't that bulky. So I think this is slightly better. I did definitely prefer Modest Suicune when I was using it, but I think that the Calm is necessary for the team. So everything else is pretty standard. Like Scald on Ice Beam, you should definitely have. Like could have an argument for Icy Wind over Ice Beam, but personally I prefer Ice Beam on my Suicune, because that was what I used in 15. I never shifted to Icy Wind, so, and I've got Icy Wind on the Persian, that's good enough. So, and Tailwind is obviously fantastic. Speed Control, every Suicune should have Tailwind. So, moving on to the very final Pokemon, and I'm just gonna put a warning before I move on to this Pokemon. This set could actually change the meta. Like, I'm very surprised it's taken, what, 14 months for someone to come up with this, but this could redefine how a Pokemon is used forever. And it is this. My Z Mirror move, Tapu Koko, it is absolutely fantastic. Wait, no. Actually, Z Mirror move is terrible on Koko. That was supposed to break the meta, and it didn't at all. So, moving on to the actual meta breaker, which is Mixed Tapu Koko. Now, Tapu Koko has 20 more attack than its special attack, and people, right at the beginning of the format, were using Wild Charge, because its attack was so much higher. But then everyone immediately saw that the special set, because of Dazzling Gleam and no Intimidate, would definitely be better on Tapu Koko. So, Physical Koko was forgotten. But with the Z move, with Thunderbolt and Wild Charge both being 90 base power and turning into, I think it's 175 base power Z moves, and having a hasty nature with the 44 attack and with the 204 special attack, that hits 141 attack and it hits 141 special attack. So both Gigavolt Havocs are identical in power. So you can just pick the defense that you hit. If you're facing something like a Tapu Lele, you hit the defense with the Z Wild Charge. If you're facing something like a Kartana, you hit like that. That's an extreme example, but you hit it with the Z Thunderbolt instead. So you just have to have the knowledge of which defense should be higher, and you just go for that one. Obviously, Intimidates can play a factor. So if you're intimidated, always go for Z Thunderbolt. But being able to hit both defenses with the Tapu Koko is actually amazing. Like in practice, well, my practice was actually just the tournaments, because I came up with this a few days before the tournament. I was just walking through the Botanical Gardens in Sydney with Barry, and I was just thinking about my Tapu Koko, and I just like thought, hey, is Wild Charge a good idea on the Z with the Z move on Tapu Koko? Had a look at the Tapu Lele calc. Being able to OHKO no bulk Tapu Lele in Psychic terrain with Z Wild Charge is absolutely huge, and it's just changed Tapu Koko for me forever. I don't think I could use another Tapu Koko now. Forget Volt Switch. Like Volt Switch is a fantastic move, but the flexibility that Z Thunderbolt and Z Wild Charge gives you is just absolutely amazing. Like, when I was against an Araquanid in the tournament, I was able to just go for a normal Wild Charge because my Z move had been burnt, and I could just go for a Wild Charge and KO an Araquanid, and if that Araquanid would have lived, I'd have lost the match. But being able to just Wild Charge it was brilliant. Like, I guess another example is I Wild Charged a Jinx that would have lived my Thunderbolt, but we'll get to that. But, like, the flexibility of Z Wild Charge and Z Thunderbolt is absolutely fantastic, and I don't care about Volt Switch because of it. Like, Dazzling Gleam is necessary for Como-O, like, you know, you need that. And it's still, like, with the slight drop in special attack investment, the Como-O still goes down. So, like, I'm very happy with this spread. Maybe you could want a little bit more attack, like, not too much more attack, because I think you should still always KO a Como-O with Dazzling Gleam. But if you wanted slightly more attack, then go for it. If you wanted slightly less attack, then I don't think that's a good idea, because you should be able to KO the Tapu Leles in Psychic terrain. Maybe, because of this, Leles will shift to have more bulk so that they can live a Z Wild Charge, but we'll see, because at the moment they've got no bulk. Because if they lead a Tapu Lele, if they underspeed you, you can just Z Wild Charge it. If they are Scarfed, then you can just go for a regular Wild Charge because you'll live it. I haven't actually looked if regular Wild Charge in electric terrain KOs Lele, but it'll probably get close. But maybe people will start intimidating your Kokos when they lead Lele now, but yeah, this Tapu Koko is absolutely fantastic. And it took 14 months for someone to think, should I run Thunderbolt and Wild Charge on the same Tapu Koko, and it is just absolutely fantastic. Even if you don't try this team, try this Koko. This Koko is the best Koko. So, that was the team that I used in Sydney and in Malmo. So I'll start off with just a brief overview of what happened in Sydney, and I think this page can just sum it up pretty much. So I did go 5-3 in the tournaments. I started off 2-0, then went on stream, and basically the two pictures up there at the top pretty much explain what happened in that match. In the first game, I was sacrificing my Charizard so I could get a free switch back into my Taunt Serperior so I could stop Trick Room going up for a second time, and his Landorus did not KO my Charizard with an Earthquake. So if I'd have had my alternative spread, my Charizard would have been KO'd, and I'd have got that free switch in and would have had a chance there, but lost that game 1, and then game 2, I fell prey to Ally Switch. So that's always a fun way to lose a match, but that's okay. That's just one match. But then immediately in the 4th round, the round afterwards, I faced a Choice Scarf Landorus, and my Celesteela got flinched. So it wasn't just one time, it was twice as well. I just needed 1 Leech Seed in game 3. All I needed was that Leech Seed, and then Celesteela just won on its own because it just stalled with the Leech Seed and Protect and Leech Seed and Protect. But no, Landorus Rock Slide was too strong in that one, and I went down to 5-2. No, I went to 2-2 in at that point. And then my third loss was me chickening out of my Z Wild Charge because I was facing a Zapdos and an Amoonguss, and I was in electric terrain. And we had both already seen that my Z Thunderbolt did not KO his Zapdos, and I had my Serperior on the field that was definitely going to be clear smogged by the Amoonguss. Definitely clear smogged. But just for some reason in my mind, I thought he knows that I can OHKO his Zapdos, and I can go for Z Wild Charge, so he's going to Rage Powder for some reason. And he didn't Rage Powder. He went for the Clear Smog. And if I'd have just gone for that Z Wild Charge, I KO'd his Zapdos and my Celesteela just won. Because it was the team that Yuri was running as well. And Zapdos is the only thing that can hit the Celesteela. If I'd have just OHKO'd that Zapdos right then and there, Celesteela won. But I chickened out of that and paid the price. So ended up going 5-3 in Sydney. All the other wins were pretty comfortable, I think. Did pull off the Swagger Foul Play combination against a Mega Latias, which KO'd it, which was really nice. So I was really happy with that. Like the rest of the tournament, like the wins, I was very comfortable with my play, but that was pretty much Sydney. for you. Like, I'll move on to Malmo now, which is a bit more interesting. And I do have all the teams that my opponents brought, because I didn't take notes for Malmo, but luckily 5 of my opponents ended up making the top 16 of Malmo. So I was able to get the full teams from there. And the other 2 that didn't make it, I could remember what their teams were. And this was one of them. So I'm going to be facing like a half Perish, half Rain team, with the Mega Metaros as well, which is quite an interesting pick to have on there. But amusingly, it fell prey to my Persian turn 1. So he led with Metagross in game 1, and I just OHKO'd it with Black Glasses Foul Play, and I just had the momentum from there. So that was pretty straightforward game 1. I was scared of his Rain mode because he would have seen my Charizard. Like, that's how I was playing the Charizard, because I wanted to bluff the Zard Y. And another thing as well I didn't mention was that because I have Serperior on my team, I get to bluff Zard Y even more because I've got potential pledges, which aren't actually there. So people should think I have Zard Y until they know I have ZardX, but everyone knows it's ZardX now, I guess. But I was hoping that the Rain mode would be scared off enough by the Gengar, not by the Gengar, by the Charizard, because I was saying he brought his Gengar in game 2 and went for a Perish mode in the game 2 after his Metagross didn't work against my Persian. And he went for, I think it was Scrafty Gengar against my Persian Suicune. And what did I do? I think I faked out his Scrafty and snarled with my Suicune, and he went for Perish Song. He went for double protect next turn, and I just side parting shot my my Suicune so that my Persian could get out of there. And I went into my Tapu Koko and went for Tailwinds on that turn as well, so I could threaten the Electriums onto his Gengar. I called the Politoed switch in because that was eject button Politoed, and I didn't target that slot, so he didn't get to eject back out into his Gengar, and I could just switch my Suicune. And I had done loads of damage to him, and he had done no damage to me without getting his Perish Song off successfully, so I was able to pretty easily get through that game too after those first few turns. So I did go 1-0. In the tournament. I did, because I didn't take notes, I can't remember your last name, Christoph, so I'm sorry about that, but everyone else I can remember. So round 2, I was against Lega, Matthias Sukadolski, and he was running the Latias team, which was quite nice because I faced that in Sydney, and I did OHKO a Mega Latias with the Swagger Foul Play combination, so I was going in expecting to do that again. He did lead with his Tyranitar and Latias, and I did lead with my Persian Serperior, and I went for the Swagger Foul Play into his Latias, and he survived in the reds, which was unexpected because the other Latias died, but there we go. His survived, and he hit himself in Confusion, which is hilarious that I managed to Swagger Lega, because he was using Swagger all through 2016 with his Thundurus. So that was really amusing, and I did manage to keep momentum from there in game 1. I did Leaf Storm into his Tapu Fini in the potential Protect, which I think could have lost me game 1, but I played as if he was Specs because that was a possibility as well. I didn't know at that point. I'm pretty sure he was Specs based on game 2, but I did manage to Leaf Storm into the Tapu Fini, and because it was all but guaranteed with the wide lens, that was fine. And then, not too sure what happened in game 2. Like I think he adjusted with one of his Pokemon, but I found out he had a speedy Aegislash, which in Tailwind outsped my Tapu Koko, so he was going to be the fast Ghostier Aegislash that way, but I can't really remember what happened in game 2, but I think it was still quite comfortable, because I did manage to take the game 2-0. It would have been nicer if I took notes, but for some reason, like I usually do take notes, but for some reason in this tournament I didn't, so I'm going to have to make do without and try and remember what happened. And it would have been very easy to remember what happened here, because this match was actually put on stream, but unfortunately the day 1 of the tournament was not archived. They forgot to tick that little box that says please archive this, and day 1 of Malmo was lost. Top Cut was saved, so I'll put links into the description because they've been put on YouTube now. I'll have links to I'll put all of the top 8 in, like not even my matches as well, so I'll put all of the top 8 into the description so you can go and check them out. But here I'm going to be facing Nils, and he's got a Fiery and Blaziken, which is really cool. Now, I did find out that he had Fiery and Blaziken because he had Life Orb on his Tapu Koko turn 1, so that's normally put on his Blaziken. Well, it was commonly in VGC 15, I guess. In VGC 18 you don't really see Blaziken, so you don't know what item it's going to be, but he ended up being Fiery. Now, I did manage to take game 1 quite comfortably, and then game 2 he did lead off with his Blaziken, got his speed boost, and then went for a Firium into my Tapu Koko, which switched into a Suicune, scouting for the Firium, so that was really good. I did manage to keep momentum with my Tailwinds as well. I Z-moved into his Blaziken Protect both turn 1 of both games, but that did let me, did I lead with my Serperior or my Suicune? I think I led with my Suicune. So it did just let me safely get up Tailwinds, so I did manage to take that game. It's a shame that that wasn't saved, because I'd have been able to remember a lot more clearly what happens, because I'd have been able to see every single turn, but there we go. So moving on to round 4 against Alexander, and he's going to be using a team that's very similar to Alex Gomez's Mega Gyarados team that he brought to the Leipzig Regional, but he's got Mega Tyranitar over that instead. So it's a pretty scary team. Now, from what I remember, I do lose game 1 very convincingly, like very convincingly, but I do manage to adapt into game 2 and game 3, and again, I didn't take my notes, unfortunately, so not entirely sure what I did to adjust. I'm pretty sure I snarled some things, and I punished choice some things, and faked out some things, but yeah, like, I annoyingly, I can't really remember too much about this match, but I did get bodied game 1, and then adjusted and took it very, very closely in games 2 and 3, so it went 4-0, and it is annoying. I can't remember much else about this set. Oh, I did face the Landorus, which was a special Assault Vest one. I do remember that, because that was unexpected. I did get up Tailwind, I think, in game 1, but he then got up Trick Room, and his Landorus undersped my Celesteela, which I was going to KO with. I did KO the Landorus, but it KO'd something of mine before my Celesteela attacked, unfortunately. So that's how he won game 1. Then game 2 and 3, I did manage to adjust, but can't remember how. It's a shame, but there we go. I need to take notes next time. So moving on to round 5 against Ben Markham from the UK as well. So it's really good to see the UK having a strong showing in this tournament. And he was running a Totem Araquanid, which was really cool. Does reveal you're not Sticky Web, but definitely worth not being Skydrop for that. But yeah, it was quite an interesting team. He had a Porygon 2, which I didn't really want to see, because like having the super bulky Trick Room was a bit annoying. And Serperior, like, it's alright against this team, but I've got better options, so I don't particularly want to be taunting him. So I want to like let the Trick Room go up and then just stall it out with good positioning, because I've got good typing synergy on my team. So game 1, I'm pretty sure he bodied me in game 1. Like that seems to be a little bit of a theme in this regional. I get bodied game 1, but managed to adjust pretty well. Game 2, I had my Dragon Danced Charizard, and he brought in his Incineroar with his Tapu Koko on the field. And all he had to do was fake out and attack my Charizard, and my Charizard would be KO'd, and I instantly lose the match. And I have my Suicune on the field at full HP, so I do expect him to go for fake out and Thunderbolt into my Suicune on my Protect on the Charizard, so that I don't instantly lose the match. And he does fake out my Suicune, so I just get a +1 Flare Blitz into his Tapu Koko and knock it out and just steal game 2. And then game 3 does come down to Tapu Koko versus Tapu Koko, and whoever gets the second Dazzling Gleam on the speed tie wins, and I managed to win the second speed tie. So I do manage to take the game for 2-1 against him, and it was very, very close set. Very, very nice call in game 2, attacking with my Charizard there, and then fortunate speed tie, but there we go. We take those, and now I'm 5-0 in the tournament. 1 win away from getting into the top cut, because there were 7 rounds in this tournament, and I'm going to be facing, I think this is my first Swede, unless Christoph was Swedish. I can't remember because of my notes, I'm sorry. But yeah, I'm going to be facing Stefan, who's got Nidoking, the famous Nidoking that might pick up in popularity after it came second in Oceania, but he's also got a CharizardX as well. And in game 1, I was in a very comfortable position. I think I had maybe even brought him down to just his Charizard and something else. And I had my Suicune on the field. All I had to do was Snarl, and then I was bulky enough to live forever, because he's got his reduced special attacks. But then he Mega Evolves, he Dragon Dances, and then he Thunder Punch KOs my Suicune. So that Snarl was not a very useful Snarl, and I ended up losing game 1. Again, I managed to adjust pretty well going into games 2 and 3. Can't remember what happened in game 2, but I remember game 3, I get a Dragon Dance out with my Charizard, and then I KO his Nidoking, which he hadn't brought in game 2 or 3. I just KO it immediately on the switch in, and then I have a lot of momentum with my CharizardX Dragon Danced up, and I managed to take the rest of the game. Go 6-0 in the tournament, so I do top cut the regional at this point, because there is only 1 round left, and that will be against Dominic, who's going to be running a Mandibuzz and a Marowak, which are 2 Pokemon that I still think they're good in VGC 18. Like, they were definitely good in VGC 17, but you don't really see them too much in 18. I do think they both have their place. Like, Mandibuzz is a very good Pokemon. Marowak is still a very good Pokemon, and has access to loads of new move tutor moves as well now, so it's going to be interesting to see how both of them develop. But I'm not too fussed going into this match. Like, obviously I'm going to be paired down against someone because I was the only XO going into this round, so I couldn't be paired against another XO, so Dominic was X1, so if I win, I probably knock him out of contention for cuts, but obviously I want that perfect run, because I've only, well, I say only, I've perfect Swissed 2 regionals before. I want to try and perfect Swiss another one, so I'm going to fight my hardest to beat him here. No, he doesn't bring Mandibuzz game 1, he leads with Metagross, game 1 turn, and turn 1 I lead with my Persian, and I foul play his non-Mega Metagross because he doesn't Mega Evolve, I think, in case I parting shot him, but I just go for an immediate foul play and just KO his Metagross. So that's the second Metagross that I OHKO on turn 1 with my Persian, which was really, really nice. And then I just have momentum in game 1. In game 2 he adjusts with his Mandibuzz, and being able to get up Tailwinds was pretty bad against me. I think I match him immediately with my Suicune initially, but then he manages to get up a second Tailwind in the game. And he has his Tapu Fini in, and I only have really Thunder Punch left, because I think I lose my Tapu Koko. I only have Thunder Punch left to deal with the Tapu Fini with my Charizard. And I was, in my mind, down to my last 2 Pokemon. I can't remember what it was, CharizardX and something, when I actually had a Persian in the back, and I thought my Persian had been KO'd, but I had switched it out. So I was playing as if I had the 2 Pokemon left. He had his Mandibuzz, Marowak, and Fini still around. So at one point he has his Marowak in, and I go for a Thunder Punch into the Tapu Fini, because in my mind the only play that I can do, that's the only play I can do to get back into the match, because I'm down to my last 2 Pokemon. I need to KO the Tapu Fini immediately, else I had no chance. And I do get that correctly because he does switch out his Marowak into the Mandibuzz. I think that was like the last turn of Tailwind, so he could get Tailwind up again. So I do manage to get the Thunder Punch onto the Tapu Fini. It was on about 60%, I think, and it survives on probably 1 HP. So that was pretty annoying that my call didn't work out completely, but he ends up missing Muddy Water on my Charizard, which like definitely mattered. If he hit that Charizard with Muddy Water, it got KO'd and I lose the match, but I should have already lost the match in my mind, like regardless, because I lost whatever the thing was next to the Charizard, and then I ended up having a Persian that I could bring in. Just go for Fake Out into the Tapu Fini and Flare Blitz into the Mandibuzz, and then Thunder Punch into the for like Foul Play and into the Marowak and Flare Blitz. I think it was Flare Blitz or Thunder Punch into the Tapu Fini. But because I had the Persian in the back that I didn't expect, I was able to take the game quite comfortably at that point. But the Muddy Water miss was very significant, and I would have it would have gone to a game 3 if he'd have hit that Muddy Water. But that's Muddy Water, and I never have any sympathy for Muddy Water misses. But there we go. I've managed to perfect Swiss in Malmo, which I'm really happy with. Especially after the 5-3 in Sydney, I'm very happy with going 7-0 and securing at least 100 points. Because now I am very much in contention for the Ohio stipends. So we'll move on to the top 8. And these all of my top 8 matches, so top 8, top 4, and the final, were streamed. So if you like, I'll be putting the links into the description to all the matches. So go and watch them before you listen to me talk about the matches. Although I wouldn't blame you if you skipped the top 8 one, because that was a very, very long match, and it did go down to timer. And yeah, because he's got a Mega Venusaur, and he's got a Porygon, and he's just going to sit on the field and recover all the time. So it's going to be a very awkward match to face, especially because my answer to Mega Venusaur is Acrobatics Celesteela. And in order to get my Acrobatics, I need Electric Terrain. In order to get Electric Terrain, I need to bring my Tapu Koko. He's got a Marowak. So that was not good, because Persian, Charizard, and Suicune were all way better than Tapu Koko in this matchup. Like, Tapu Koko would be good against the Gyarados and the Fini, but the other 3 that I brought were way better, because the Marowak just shut down my Koko too much that I did end up sacrificing my Acrobatics on my Celesteela. And in game 1, it did come down to Celesteela versus Venusaur as an endgame. And if I'd have had my Acrobatics procced, then I'd have been able to 1v1 the Venusaur. But because I only had Heavy Slam, he was able to 1v1 me because of Leech Seed. And obviously I can't Leech Seed the Venusaur, he can Leech Seed me, and then he was able to knock me out that way. And then in game 2, it did come down to a turn where his Venusaur was on like 60%, and my burned Celesteela went for a Heavy Slam into his Venusaur. This was in Trick Room, so I Heavy Slammed his Venusaur, and he was on like just under 50%, and I needed my Flare Blitz to KO his Venusaur, else I will lose the match, and Charizard was just strong enough, and it did KO the Mega Venusaur at, what, 49% HP, so I was really relieved by that, and if that wouldn't have happened, I'd have probably lost the match, but Charizard was strong enough, and I was able to pull through the game 2. But the games 1 and 2 took 40 minutes, so there was only 10 minutes left, and I was very, very aware that there was not much time left in the round timer. So I changed my tactic up completely for game 3, and I was just trying to pick up 2 quick knockouts and then stall. So he ended up leading with his Marowak this time. He left it in the back in games 1 and 2, but I lead off with my Persian and Charizard. He leads off with his Marowak, and he lets me Foul Play and Flare Blitz KO his Marowak turn 1. So that was really, really big, because then I can just go for the knockout on one more Pokemon and stall the rest of the time. And because the Marowak's gone, I can now Thunder Punch his Finny with my Charizard, which is what I end up doing. I think it was like 2 Thunder Punches, a Heavy Slam, and maybe a Leech Seed recovery. Ended up knocking out his Tapu Fini. And then I start stalling. I only need to stall for 2 minutes. Like, I was letting my time go down completely, because he only had his Mega Venusaur and his Porygon left at that point, and I had all 4 of my Pokemon. My Celesteela was starting to get very low because it got burned and Leech Seeded and chipped away at, but I was able to snarl both his Venusaur and Porygon, and then I was able to switch in my Persian on the round timer ending, so I could go for Fake Out, and then I would have gone for Protect and Parting Shot, sacrifice my Celesteela, and then Fake Out, and then I win the match 3-2 on the tiebreaker. But he ends up forfeiting on the turn 2 of the final 3 turns, because he knows that he doesn't have any way of winning. I guess he could have got like all the critical hits, but at that point, because I had got my Charizard, I switched my Charizard in on a Giga Drain on the turn 1, so I was able to just Protect and Parting Shot, sacrifice Celesteela, and then Fake Out into the Venusaur, and then out of 1. So I was able to take that one 2-1, but that was a very, very long game, and not one I'm used to, because most of the teams I build are very offensive, and I either win or lose within, 20 minutes. So going to the round timer was a new experience for me, and it was interesting timer stalling in VGC 18, but there we go, it was necessary. So do manage to win the top 8 and move on to the top 4 against my good friend Barry Anderson, and he's running a very cool team. Like, that is definitely the most interesting teaming top cut, and it was annoying to face, because he's got three hard setup mons with good support around it, so it's going to be very awkward to face against him. I did fight him in the mid-season showdown, the second mid-season showdown final in London. I did manage to beat him there, because he missed a Rock Slide on his with his Tyranitar in game 3 on my Celesteela. But he's out for revenge, and I'm going to be using roughly the same team. Like, I was using the second mid-season showdown team, so 4 of the same 6 Pokemon. But I have Persian over Incineroar this time, and I'm hoping that he's forgotten about my Icy Wind on my Persian, because I was talking to a couple of people, I think it was Ben and Tommy, before the match, and they were saying whether I had a plan against Baz, and I had a slight plan. Like, I knew what I was going to do game 1, and then I was going to adjust in game 2, but like, I told them that I was going to lead with Persian and Tapu Koko, and they were quite surprised at it. But I did have my plan going in. I was expecting that Lucario Tyranitar lead that he was going for in the mid-seasons, so I did lead my Persian and Tapu Koko, and because of my Icy Wind, I was able to reduce his speeds back down to neutral when he was Dragon Dancing with his Tyranitar. So he double protects on my Fake Out turn 1, which I didn't go for. I doubled into Lucario, expecting him to go for a Protect and Close Combat into my Persian, but there we go. Then turn 2, he goes for Follow Me Dragon Dance. I go for Icy Wind and Thunderbolt. It doesn't KO the Lucario. I was expecting it to, but that was actually better, because then he goes for Protect and Dragon Dance. I Icy Wind again, a Dazzling Gleam, and then a Dazzling Gleam KOs the Lucario and chunks the Tyranitar, so that at +2 attack, my Foul Play was enough to KO it. So that was really good. And I did look up afterwards, and if I didn't have the black glasses, the Tyranitar would have lived, but because of the black glasses, it did KO it. So that was a really nice item choice there, KOing the Tyranitar, and then he only had his Bulu and his Volcarona left. I didn't have to predict anything. I could go for a Z move into the Volcarona and a Z Wild Charge into the Volcarona, because that's got a much lower defense, and even in the grassy terrain, it did like 90% to it. Z move into the Volcarona and Icy Wind was very safe, because he was Scarf Bulu. If he would hammered my Koko, I got Icy Wind off, and I was fine. And if he would hammer my Persian, which happens, then I Z Wild Charge his Volcarona and chunk it enough that because I'm getting the Icy Wind off as well, then I can just knock it out with anything I want. So I take game 1 quite comfortably. And I do expect him to shift to his Azumarill in game 2 because against my Persian and Koko, if he goes Lucario and Azumarill, then I won't be able to do the Icy Wind stuff that I did with my Persian. Because he can't, the Icy Wind would beat his Tyranitar and Volcarona's dances, but not Azumarill. So I was expecting him to shift to Azumarill in game 2, so I brought Serperior instead of Persian, so that I could threaten with Leaf Storms or with electric moves once I KO'd the Lucario. But he sticks with Tyranitar and Lucario, and I double into the Lucario, KO it, and get my boost with Leaf Storm. Then he brings in his Jinx, which was an adaptation over Bulu. He goes for Fake Out and another Dragon Dance, so he's at +2 attack. And then after a couple of rounds of Sand Chip with my Serperior, I was expecting to still be able to take a +2 Rock Slide, because I do Wild Charge his Jinx on his Tyranitar Protect, which was nice. But then he gets his switch into Volcarona, and he goes for the +2 Rock Slide on my Serperior, and he knocks it out as well as the Koko as well. That was definitely being KO'd. But he did KO my Serperior with the +2 Rock Slide. And I looked it up afterwards, and he had a 25% chance of KOing my Serperior, because I was on 123 HP. It would have survived 75% of the time, and if I'd have broken through a potential flinch, if I'd have survived, then I just Leaf Storm the Tyranitar, and the game is instantly over. But unfortunately, he gets that roll, and then I have to play for either a Rock Slide or a Heat Wave miss. So, because he does get a Quiver Dance on the turn, he gets a double KO, so he's got all the momentum. I bring in Charizard and Celesteela, double Protect on his Z move and his Rock Slide. Now I just have to hope for a miss, and he ends up missing my Charizard with Rock Slide, which was pretty fortunate, because then I can I lose my Celesteela to Rock Slide and Heat Wave, but then Flare Blitz is able to take out the Tyranitar, and then Charizard just Flare Blitzes the Volcarona for a KO again. So I do manage to take game 2 and take the set 2-0. So unfortunate Rock Slide, but also unfortunate roll that was heavily in my favour on the Serperior as well. So it somewhat evens out, even though the odds, the 10% chance miss was less odds than the 25% chance survival, or the 25% chance to KO, I should say. But there we go. That's the game we play. But I will be moving on to the final against Ben Markham, so who I faced in round 5, and we got an all-UK final, which I was very happy with. I wasn't particularly happy to be facing Ben. I'd have preferred to face his top 4 opponent, because I thought I had a better matchup against that team. But there we go, have to deal with what I've been dealt with. So again, go and watch the final before I talk about it. I'm hoping that you've gone and watched all 3 games before you got to this point anyway, but go and watch the final, because it is a good final. So he leads off with his Incineroar and Porygon, and I let him get up Trick Room, because I don't bring my Serperior to any of the 3 games. So I'm going to let him get up Trick Room and just stall it out. That's my game plan. So because he has his Incineroar and Porygon, I switch out my Charizard into Suicune. So I got my Persian and Suicune against his Incineroar and Porygon as he gets up Trick Room. So I chunk the Incineroar with Foul Play and Scald, and then I only start Foul Playing the Incineroar. I could have picked up a knockout on the Incineroar whenever I wanted with my Suicune, because I was able to survive 2 knockoffs and a Thunderbolt as well. So I could have picked up the Incineroar, but that gave him the free switch into Araquanid, and I didn't want that. The Incineroar wasn't putting on too much offensive pressure. So after I got his Incineroar down into the red, I started foul playing his Porygon instead of his Incineroar, because he ends up staying in the entirety of Trick Room. So I just start chunking the Porygon, leaving the Incineroar in. So because I know it's Assault Vested, I can just take it out with a foul play or whatever move I want when I'm outside of Trick Room. So I keep on chunking the Porygon as it is forced to recover with the P2 in the final turns of Trick Room. I do lose my Suicune, but I keep my Persian until the last turn of Trick Room. Get a Dragon Dance out with my Charizard on the last turn, so I'm threatening big damage. And he KOs his own Incineroar to Flare Blitz on my Persian. Because of Blaze, he knocks out my Persian, but that gives me the free switch into Tapu Koko and Charizard. He brings in Porygon 2, and I can just double it with a Thunder Punch and Z Wild Charge, because I found out that he's much more specially defensive than physically defensive, so Z Wild Charge is the better one. And that combination is able to knock him out. My Koko survives the Z move from his Koko. And then I can just go for a Flare Blitz into his Tapu Koko and a Wild Charge into his Araquanids, and I pick up 2 knockouts there. He protects his Koko, but his Araquanid goes down to Wild Charge, and then I just Flare Blitz his Tapu Koko. So I'm pretty content with how I play game 1. My game plan was to stall out Trick Room, just let it happen and stall it out, and I managed to do that pretty successfully, so I was very happy with game 1. In game 2, I switch it up and bring my Celesteela instead. So then I've switched my game plan, because I left the Incineroar just on the field for ages, and I was expecting him to either not bring the Incineroar because it wasn't doing too much, or to just leave it on the field so I could just take it out with the Z Wild Charge, because that's what I ended up doing. Turn 1, because I lead with Persian and Koko into his Incineroar and Porygon, and I just immediately fake out and Z-Wild charge his Incineroar, because my plan is to take out the Incineroar and Koko so that my Celesteela will win, because that is my adjustment. And I do take out the Incineroar, because it was Assault Vest. If I would have just been Z-Thunderbolt, there would have been no chance to do that, but because I am Z-Wild Charge, it is able to one-shot the Incineroar, so that is a really nice use of Z-Wild Charge there. And he has actually switched up his Koko to Bulu, so my Celesteela should theoretically have just won because he's lost his Incineroar as well. But unfortunately, his Porygon 2 has Thunderbolt, and because of my electric terrain, he's able to do like 75% to my Celesteela, and I don't position very well in Game 2. He's able to chunk my Celesteela enough that he can take it out, and I lose Game 2, unfortunately. So his Bulu adjustment was really good, because he would hammer my Persian, which went for a parting shot in Trick Room, and I switched the Celesteela in the wrong slot, which if I'd have switched it in the right slot and gone for an attack with Koko, I'd have been in a really good position, but I got that wrong. But in Game 3, he leads with exactly the same. He leads with Incineroar and Porygon, and I lead with my Persian and Koko. Now, he has obviously got his Bulu that is a switch-in for the Z-Wild Charge, and he knows that I know that he's got his Bulu as a switch in, so I predict him. I make a very ballsy prediction to turn 1, and I expect him to stay in with his Incineroar, expecting me to play around a Bulu switch in, and I go for the immediate fake out and Z Wild Charge again into his Incineroar. It stays in, and I take out Incineroar immediately again. So this time I can still try and win with my Celesteela, but I just need to be a bit more careful with it, because he makes exactly the same play turn 2. Except he attacks my Koko instead of my Persian. So I switch the Persian and Celesteela and protects the Koko, getting my Celesteela in, because I was playing a lot more cautiously, because I just lost my Persian, and that lost me too much in Game 2. But Game 3, managed to stall out his Trick Room, but his Arachnids is able to take my Acrobatics, unfortunately. And he can just go for a Protect Trick Room, because I'm down to my Celesteela and my Charizard as my last two Pokemon. So he goes for Protect Trick Room. I Leech Seed and Thunder Punch his Porygon, because I got a chance for a full paralysis, which probably wasn't going to happen, but I was also not letting my Charizard take any recoil, so that, because it had survived a combination of Ice Beam and Liquidation before, so if I'd have taken any recoil, then I'd definitely get KO'd to that combination. But in the position that I'm in, because I've chunked his Porygon enough, if I go for an Acrobatics into his Arachnid and I go for a Flare Blitz into his Porygon, and he doesn't manage to take any KOs that turn, then I will be able to take out both his Pokemon that turn. So I do expect him to have to try and stop my Charizard from KOing his Porygon, and expect him to double up into the Charizard, and I attack with my Celesteela that turn, which was very risky, because if he just went for Thunderbolt into the Celesteela and then went for Liquidation into the Charizard, then that could have been really, really bad. So I would have just lost straight up because of the Protect on the Charizard, but he does end up doubling into my Charizard, and my Celesteela picks off his Arachnid, and then his Porygon, because it is Leech Seeded, I've got a +2 special defense because of my Beast Boost on the Celesteela, and I've got full HP Charizard that can just Dragon Dance and Flare Blitz his Porygon. I do end up taking the final 2-1, and I am now a 3-time regional champion, which is awesome. It was a very, very hype final, and I hope you went and watched it, because just hearing me describe it is going to be nowhere near good enough. Like, you should have gone and watched it, and even if you haven't, go and watch it now. There will be all the links in the description. So yeah, like, it was a fantastic final, and I'm over the moon. Like, 3-time regional champion is such a cool thing to say, and I'm so happy with it. So I'll finish this with a few shoutouts, because this has gone on way longer than I expected, but I end up with his shoutouts. Like, shoutouts to Kiriaku, because without his team, I wouldn't have evolved that team into what let me win the Malmo Regional, so I'd have brought something completely different. Who knows what it would have been? Maybe I'd have won Sydney with it, I don't know, but, like, I'm very happy that he gave me his team to play around with. Shoutouts to Baz, like, unfortunate knocking each other out, well, not each other, knocking him out in the semi-final, but for being a fantastic travel buddy, going on the Grand Tour with me to the 2 MSSs, going to Sydney and then going to Malmo, and yeah, we had a great time. I was very happy with the trip. And to Limitless VG, or is it VGC? I don't know, not sure. But that is where all the stream stuff has been put onto that YouTube channel.
which will be in the description, which hopefully you've gone and watched anyway. But they were the ones who streamed it, so shout-outs to them. And shout-outs to Billa, to Lou, and to Marcus for commentating the regional. They did a really good job. It's a shame we couldn't watch the day one stuff, but they did a fantastic job in Top Cut. So, and obviously shout-outs to Team Jamie, because they get annoyed at me when I don't shout them out. So, there's your shout-out. But yeah, I'm going to end the video here, because this has gone on way longer than I expected. Wide Lens Serperior is the play. Mixed Koko is the best Koko. Thanks for watching.